Do you want to tell us a little bit of your story and how you got into this industry?
Yes, absolutely. And I think as I was reflecting back on my story this morning, I realized how many copywriters and marketers who might be further along probably will relate to a lot of the things I've gone through, and how a lot of people who are just beginning their journey could also relate to the beginning of my journey and sort of the trajectory that I went down. So in 2008, I graduated from college, very fancy school in New York. I thought I would be an investment banker because I always wanted to make a lot of money. Money always meant freedom and choice to me. And money's a resource ultimately, right? And as humans, we like to collect resources. So this was my initial plan. Then, of course, it was 2008. I remember like the disarray and panic in my school when Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the whole world kind of changed overnight for us. And so I could not get a job in investment banking. I would have been a terrible investment banker anyway, so that was meant to be. And I found myself Googling the phrase, how to make money online. And I learned how to make money online and I became pretty good at it. On that journey, I discovered a spot called the Warrior Forum, which was the leading internet marketing forum of the day. It was incredibly active, like thousands of users online, 3 a.m. It didn't matter. We were all so busy and so into it. On that forum, I learned about this thing called copywriting. And I had always been a writer. I always loved writing short stories, nonfiction, essays, poetry. I would just have volumes and volumes of notebooks full of writing. And when I learned that copywriting was the way to be a not poor writer, I was like, okay, this is the type of writing I'm going to do now. And I remember reading one of the first sales letters I ever read. I'm looking at every single word and I notice the tricks that they're doing to open loops on me, keep me interested, future pacing, all of the selling strategies within the writing. And I became totally obsessed with copywriting. And the first piece of sales copy I ever actually wrote was promoting my own services as a copywriter. And so I did address the elephant in the room of not having any experience, but I was like, this is why I'm undercharging everybody else on this forum. If my writing in this piece has compelled you, take a chance with me. And people did overnight. And I scored my very first clients. And from there, I literally grew a pretty much solely referral-based copywriting business for 10 years. For 10 years, I did it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, because a lot of people think that you need a ton of wins, or that there's that like one final thing that you need to do before you can take the next step, before you can go after clients. But you were just like, hey, I don't have a testimonial, but like let this act for itself as a testimonial. So that's really cool to hear. Now, you start on a Warrior Forum. How did you take your next few steps? Or like, what were the big moments for you? And how did you cross that, six-figure mark that seems so elusive for many beginners?
Yeah. In servicing my clients, I just became obsessed with crushing it for them and getting them the biggest wins. And so through that, I would learn every other piece that was necessary to have a sales letter online that does really well, right? So I would learn about the different traffic sources and how they would respond to different types of sales letters or different pieces of material. I learned how important optimizing your back end was and your LTV. I learned about creating, different creatives for different types of list traffic, just everything that goes into having a winning offer, all out of this desire to be the best. And now that I reflect on that, I realized, well, I was just getting more prepared, more and more prepared and knowledgeable, until I got to the point, and I think a lot of copywriters get there, of, okay, well, I want to do my own thing. Like, I'm seeing all of the pieces of the puzzle come together for all of my clients. and I really want to try this out for myself. But before I did that, let me answer how I was able to clear the six-figure mark in my first year. I think the biggest thing that I did that I see a lot of young copywriters struggling with is speed to lead. I'm like lightning fast speed to lead. So sometimes a prospective client will reach out to a writer or any other service provider, or any other potential business partner for that matter. And the person who's receiving that will say, okay, let me hang out. It's almost like this, like what you do in dating, right? Like, let me lag a little bit before I respond so they don't think that I'm desperate. I believe that this is a huge critical mistake. And it was Harlan Kilston who once described your prospects as pigs in heat. And I never, ever forgot that phrase. Like, okay, if the pig is in heat, I got to go fuck the pig. I don't know. Sorry, I have no idea like the rating on this podcast, but I just had to close the joke all the way. So I would immediately respond to people like, hey, are you available? I'm like, yeah, I'm available. I can take you on. What do you need? In addition to responding very quickly, I always tried to close the deal very quickly. So instead of getting on a phone call and then taking 3 days to write a proposal, first of all, entrepreneurs, business owners are very distractible people, and they have a lot of spinning plates. So by the time you get back to them in 3 days, they have moved on, or perhaps another service provider has stepped in and closed that deal. So I would always, as often as possible, think, how can I close this deal on the phone? You know, if they say they want a sales letter, I'll be like, okay, I'll write you a sales letter. Here's my rate. Here's my turnaround time. I'll send you an invoice right now. And they'll be like, okay. It takes a lot of like the guesswork off of their plate, and I just present them what they need and close the deal really quickly. I also was not afraid, as I increased my rates, of losing former clients. That'll happen. That's part of the game. But all that does is free you up for the clients who are ready to pay your premium rates. And something I want to say about charging in general, and I think this is helpful for coaches too, you want to charge a rate that empowers your client when they pay it. Because if you're doing something for them for free or for a really tiny amount of money, how empowered are they really going to be? How much value are they going to place on the deliverable or on your coaching or whatever it may be? But if somebody pays me 20 grand for coaching or whatever, they're going to be really empowered by what I give them. And they're going to take massive action on it because they'll be like, well, shoot, I paid 20 grand for this. I have to turn that around. I have to get the ROI out of it. So I better do everything Laura said. And it's quite similar for when you're charging high rates for copywriting clients too. So the mixture of all of that stuff was how, yeah, in my very first year of copywriting, I was able to cross the six-figure mark. I think I made about 120 grand that year and pretty much no costs. So that money got to be all mine. And I remember going to graduate school for a master's of fine arts in poetry, solely because it's a labor of love. And I was the only, you know, poets are usually pretty poor. So I was the only person able to completely pay my tuition with no loans, like straight cash, here you go. And that was one of like the proudest, happiest moments in my life, being able to do that.
That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And for anybody listening who is kind of like in the position that Laura was in, I think the biggest takeaways there, and there are so many good ones, especially speed, but the one that sticks with me the most, because I use it as well, is being able to do more than your competition. So for example, with email marketing, we don't just write the emails in Google Docs. We sign into the ESP, we manage deliverability, and we do things that frankly are not that difficult compared to what other people do, but other people don't do them. So for you, being able to understand like, okay, this is the front end copy, and I think this will convert well, but like, how are we going to position the order book? How are we going to make the upsells work? What about downsells? What about different sources of traffic that are going to be seeing this? How can we cater it to every single one? And I think that's something that you absolutely crushed, that has made you really successful. So for anybody listening, definitely take note of that, because differentiation and just being better is really, really important. So Laura, moving on to the next part, you always had like some kind of itch to do your own thing at some point. What was the very first thing you did that you consider fully your own?
I attempted to launch a few info products back in the day, But those never really got off of the ground. And I think the limiting belief that I had that prevented that was when a prospective client would come my way, okay, this is a certain 10 grand in the bank for this sales letter versus the uncertainty of putting my offer out there and having no idea how it's going to do. And so I came to rely on those clients and taking that easy win and the easy money first. So when that finally stopped, though, was when I created a supplement offer called Active Guard. I think about it, my sweet little Active Guard offer to support prostate health. And the inspiration for that was my parents. Well, really, it started with I was on an airplane and I noticed how as soon as we took off, like several older men in their 50s, like got up and like beelined it to the different bathrooms on the airplane. And I was like, oh man, like, give me the idea for the story. What if somebody has an accident on the airplane? All of this stuff. And I wanted to help with the pain point. And I know my dad goes to the bathroom quite a bit. I like to go pee. So I wanted to work on the pain point of, you know, frequent urination and having to use the bathroom a lot. And so at this point, Stefan was, you know, really crushing it with his supplement offers. And that's an interesting thing about our story because yeah, I showed him copywriting, and then he in turn has showed me so much more, you know, so he inspired me in that way. And through him, I knew a lot about how to source product on demand. So you don't have to outlay a huge upfront cost for inventory, about how to forge affiliate deals and all this stuff, how to work with affiliate agencies and the like. And so I tried my hand at Active Guard, and that was quite a successful offer. It was in fact quite profitable. It just didn't have huge scale. And it wasn't, of course, like a product that I could fully resonate with and understand. So I just sort of let that dwindle away by the wayside, which has been a pattern of mine that I've been working to correct throughout this whole journey too. Like, oh yeah, I started something, it's going pretty well, like, next. Or at least learning how to deal with that next step. Do I bring in a strategic partner who handles, you know, all of the operational stuff that is not my bag at all? So I could just stay in my zone and like be the creative and have ideas and do marketing and copy. Or do I build and structure things to sell them? Like, do I create offers, prove that they're winners and sell them? Whatever those next steps are. And that is actually, to bring it over to Eat and Beauty, this is the exact position I'm in with Eat and Beauty also.
Perfect. So yeah, that's like kind of the next question I wanted to ask, because it sounded like early on you were trying to create a couple of different offers that could maybe make money. You weren't super passionate about them, and you're just kind of like playing with copywriting and seeing what was possible. But then eventually you found like, okay, I should probably do something that I'm really passionate about. And you've got Eat and Beauty. You named it after your daughter. It seems like it's something you're very passionate about. How did you manage to scale that to 7 figures in 1 year? I think it's actually really cool. It's like in 1 year, you went from 0 to 6 figures just with copywriting, and then you started a 7-figure company in 1 year with something you were very passionate about.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question and a cool parallel. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. So I think one of the secret sauces of Eat and Beauty and why I was able to scale that fast, that quickly, was the hybrid approach. So really blending classy, branded, e-commerce type of marketing in a mega niche, right? Skincare is huge. It's not as small as like little prostate health, with like hard-hitting direct response elements, be that in my clothes on a product page. You know, just because it's a product page doesn't mean you have to have flat, typical copy. You could still be hard hitting. I could still tell them why they need to buy. I could still remind them of the guarantee. I can still do risk reversal and paint the picture of how horrific it's going to be if they don't buy, which is one of my favorite things to do in sales copy. Like all of that right on a product page. Why not? Tied in with really good conversion rate optimization. You know, the buttons should be in this contrasting color. There should be no friction between add to cart and checkout. really getting really dialed in on checkout page optimizations and optimizing for AOV as well. So making sure I had good back end in place, fire abandoned cart sequence, working with you for the follow-up email marketing, which you were amazing at. It was so great. And just getting all of those core direct response principles tied in to, again, a mega niche product that is also branded. I think that was part of the magic of it. And being able to bring those direct response elements into our front end Facebook ads too. And while keeping them clean and compliant enough so that I did not deal with many shutdowns.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good insight too. And it kind of goes back to the principle you learned as a copywriter of making sure that you understand the entire process and business rather than just a front end offer. So it kind of shows how you used what you learned by copywriting for other people, and then you applied it to your own business in the future. So one thing I didn't know is that you mentioned earlier today when you were getting pumped up for this podcast that Eden Beauty largely runs without you. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to manage that as well?
Yes. So as I mentioned in learning from my other supplement offers that I did, okay, I see that I'm very good and very active in the growth phase. And I think part of it is the learning experience of, okay, I know how to go to 0 to 1 million now. I'm learning like how to go from 1 million to 10 million. Of course, I have not done that yet. So with whom can I connect who has done that? And I feel like a lot of the new lessons there are very operational ones. Okay, how do we lead the team? Who are the correct strategic hires to make? How do we really keep a tight handle on all of the merchant processing fees we pay, our costs of goods, shipping? This bottle is too expensive, or it's glass, it's hard to ship, it breaks. Okay, supply chain management. We have an issue with aloe. We got to find a different aloe supplier. So all of these new things that arise when you're scaling at this level, now I know, okay, I just need to be pulling in the right people. And so that's what I've done for a lot of it. And I'm even contemplating even more significant partnerships where instead of me finding these individual people, okay, let me just get the one person and their job is to find all the people so that I can very much stay in my creative lane. And that's the place we're at, where a lot of that work is luckily not done by me.
That's a good point you bring up too. So you mentioned your creative lane. What exactly is that for you? Because for me, for some reason, I like the days where I'm sitting at home and I don't happen to have any Zoom calls that day, and I can just work on like operations and like hooking things up on the back end. That's like my area where I just like love to play with things and experiment. And I like writing too, but kind of curious, what are your very favorite things to do in your business?
Definitely writing and coming up with ideas, be that mechanism ideas, names for things, angles, stories. For me, the storytelling that I do in copywriting is usually personal about me. I was never one of like the big horrifying experience on a Ferris wheel leads to blah, blah, blah. But thinking about my own stories or the stories of people that I work with and imbuing that into my copy. So yeah, my creative lane is either the physical act of writing, which sometimes is painful for me to start, because if I'm sitting there and I'm not sure what I want to write about, and I hate the thought of beginning a diary entry when that is not my goal, but knowing that that's what I have to do for like 3 minutes until the other stuff starts coming out of me. So sitting and just writing like that, or after doing a bunch of research or going through my notes on things and all of the ideas that I have, letting that stew in my head for that diffuse thinking to come through, and then some sort of magic to hit me. That's always the best moment, isn't it?
It sounds like fun to me. So another thing that's fun to a lot of people is mindset. And lately, I've seen you post a lot about it. And then all of a sudden you started the Diamond Day Mastermind. And I was like, that's so cool. I was unable to attend the first event. I'm highly looking forward to going to the next one. Can you tell me a little bit more about like what you're working on with Diamond Day and a lot of the really like heavy mindset lessons that you're teaching?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So, my purpose for Diamond Day was and still is to make all participants motivated, ambitious, and able. And people will say that motivation is fickle and you should rely on discipline. I think there's value to it, but to that line of thinking, but I also think it's a little bit simplistic because when you look at people like you, people like me, people like Stefan, like the badasses who just seem to like keep going after it and keep going after it, I would say that yes, we're disciplined, but we always like some motivation always remains. And maybe your motivations change. There's nothing like when your back is against the wall, right? Because when your back is against the wall and you have to make it happen, somehow it always seems to happen. But once it's happened and things are flowing, okay, what is my new source of motivation? And this is a question that I'm really interested in asking people like you and uh, anybody and everybody who has a potential answer. So I really wanted to like tackle that motivation piece and work on how I could help other people be motivated. Because if you can recreate that context of your back being against the wall and you're incredibly motivated, well, then, okay, we can have other successes, just like people always tend to do when their back is against the wall. And then in diving into these areas and these questions, I learn about the beliefs and thought patterns and ways of being and language people use that inherently hold them back. And I became so deeply interested in, can I, in one day, like maybe it's a lofty goal to like shatter the belief. I believe it's possible. And that's like, I'm swinging for the fences, right? This is what I want to do. But at the very least, can I get people to question their beliefs and to realize that if they just chip away, or if they just reframe these beliefs even a little bit, the belief of, I have to play it cool for prospective clients or else they're going to think I'm invaluable. Well, can't we flip that just a little bit to your benefit so that you're able to turn around and be more successful and have more confidence and feel more empowered and understand that your eagerness is an asset that you shouldn't be downplaying. You should be leveraging it. You should be hyping them up. Or, you know, it's like, if you're a copywriter, why do I see so many copywriters write awful cover letters when they're applying to gigs? I'm like, I thought you were a copywriter. Why are you so demure in your writing here? You got to put your copywriter spank on everything that you do. So if I could just teach this to people, and not just copywriters, but even the budding entrepreneur as well, who might be in fact-finding mode for so long, who might be researching for so long without ever taking the leap, without ever putting anything out there, without ever making an offering. Why? And what can I do to get you through that? And that's really that's the beginning. That's where we start with Diamond Day.
That's perfect. So there's a lot of people commenting in the chat. They're so excited for the second event. What is your plan for this long term? Is it going to be, a few events a year? Is it going to evolve, or maybe you're not sure yet?
It's definitely going to evolve. So for example, Diamond Day 1 was only 1 day. Diamond Day 2 will be 3 days, 2 days in the conference room doing the hard work, and a third surprise day, which when my sales letter for that launches, everybody will get to see what that is. Some people already know, of course, my DD1 attendees already know. So it's going to be very, very cool. Another part of what is so fun for me about Diamond Day is just creating a badass event, like high end. I get to pick every little detail that I care about, and the details I don't care about, somebody else handles. But things like, this is my favorite style of notebook. Like, I love an unlined notebook. I hate writing in lines, very constricting. So I'm like, okay, I got to source the most beautiful unlined notebooks for my attendees. I like a pen with a 0.38 millimeter tip. It's the best to write with. And so I got to find these pens. Everything's got to be black and gold because I love black and gold. So and that's like, we got to have diamond tequila. Our drinks have literal diamond powder poured into them. Like, we're doing like high-end catered steak dinners for everything. Macallan 12, So just everything top of the line, luxury, incredible experience. one, that's fun for me, but it is also strategic too, right? Because if I could get people in the environment of, oh, I deserve the best, and there's nothing wrong with wanting the best. In fact, I am in most alignment when I am seeking and pursuing that which I most want. That fills my cup. That means the pursuit fills my cup. They're going to be all the better off, right? So I try to create that experience in a fun and strategic way. So yeah, we're going to have 3 days of that VIP experience for Diamond Day 2. And I would like to do at least 2 events per year, and maybe a third single day event at a lower price point for tickets so that I can begin the shifts. And then hopefully over the 3-day event, we get like massive transformational, life-changing shifts.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That sounds really exciting, especially since you're putting together like every single detail, not just because it's fun and it's fancy and we all like that, but because it shows people like, hey, it's okay to have success. It's okay to be around this kind of stuff because a lot of us, probably almost every single person in here grew up and like felt that they didn't deserve something. And I think that's one of the biggest kind of like mental blocks that holds people back. So what advice would you give to somebody who kind of has the mindset that they don't deserve success? And then maybe what are a couple of the other common issues you see with mindset, and what would you say to people with those issues?
The first really important and beneficial thing is for somebody to acknowledge that this is the issue. Because as soon as you can see, hey, I have been holding back because for some reason I feel like I don't deserve it, then you can at least get above that issue and be like, well, I really want it anyway. So I'm going to act in spite of feeling like I might not deserve it. I think that's step one. And then step two would be to give yourself the space and time, realize that your feelings and your experiences are valid. They're not bullshit. They happened for a reason. And try to dig into why. I think there are going to be different reasons across the board. A lot of our feelings of deservedness come from, of course, our parenting and our home life growing up, because this is what has been baked into our subconscious for so long. And so again, just being able to look at that from like an above party point of view and being like, oh yeah, I realize how when my mom said rich people are assholes, that this is what's affecting me right now. But can you just move from there to being available to receive? That's all I'm going to ask you to be. Can you be a little bit more available to receive? Your greatest ability to improve your self-worth is through receiving. Can you receive? And notice that when you receive, what are you able to do? You're able to turn around and show up more and give to so many other people. But if you don't receive first, you're giving from an empty gas tank. You can't drive the car. So if you need to throw away the concept of deservedness and receive so that you can give to others, if that's the way you need to sort it out in your head to be able to take the actions required of you to get there, then do that. And then that can become habitual and second nature.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it's actually interesting because yesterday in the Email Secrets Inner Circle, we had a call with my friend Dimon Jabbar, who he's like a mindset guy as well. And we were talking very heavily about like how every kind of like mental block is usually triggered from some earlier event in your life. And the easiest way to kind of drill down and get rid of it is think back as far as you can, just step by step. Every time that you think of something negative, it's like, okay, why do I think that? Well, maybe one time when I was a kid, you know, my mom said this to me. And you go back as soon as you can remember and think about like why she might have said that, or, you know, whoever said it to you, and think, does that still apply to me today? Because most of the time it doesn't. And it's a very freeing feeling. So that's one thing that helps me whenever I get like really weird about something or like I have a block. But I just thought I should share that too, because you're really dropping a lot of diamonds here with mindset.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's so true. And it's such an amazing point as well. And even just the ability to work through your thoughts that way is a muscle that's going to serve you so incredibly well. Because now you can analyze, well, why do I feel afraid to do this right now? Or why do I feel slighted by this thing? Another thing to keep in mind is humans are meaning makers. Like this is what we do fantastically, and no other animal that we know of does this, right? You know, we can see somebody say something or do something over there, and we instantaneously develop this whole story about it in our heads, true or not. And if we're not, again, operating one rung above it, we might react to this story, right? Have this emotional reaction versus realizing, wait a minute, why did I perceive that way? Why is this the story I'm telling myself? Holy moly. And then you're able to take completely different actions, right? Because you're not driven by the narrative that's going on in your head.
So one thing that kind of goes along with mindset and motivation is balance. And a lot of people talk about balance and work-life balance, but I want to go back to when I first met you. I think it was at Freelancer Freedom in Vegas, 2019. And when I first met you, you mentioned to me that your first priority was being a mom and taking care of Eden. And at the time, I was a lot younger and I didn't really understand that. And I don't have kids myself and I won't for a while. But now I just kind of like understand a little bit more how important it is to have like, work here and family here and all the things that you and Stefan have going on in your life and being able to balance those. So how do you do it?
This is something that is ever like a changing and evolving process. So it's not like the scale has been balanced and it's just permanently like that. It's like I'm always like holding the plates and the scale is going this way or that. So putting the conscious intention on the time I spend with Eden being really high quality. And I'm not always perfect at it. So I don't want anybody like listening to get the impression that like it's this magical act. I struggle with it sometimes. Sometimes when I leave the office in a rush and I get home and I'm playing with Eden, like the work is still on my mind because it's a very abrupt switch. But the same muscle of being able to recognize that, okay, now let me act differently because I recognize what I'm doing. That's a huge step one. And knowing that what I do in my work, it's my greatest goal that this empowers Eden. And that Eden can turn around and look at what I've done and look at what Stefan has done and be able to say like, wow, I can do whatever the hell I want in the world because my parents have shown me that. And does that sometimes like take a little bit of sacrifice here and there? Yeah, but not necessarily. A lot of it is learning how to work efficiently, dialing in the delegation piece, learning how to give a little bit of that up. Will it require more of my time in the beginning to train someone? Probably, but it's for the greater good in the end so that my time gets freed up. I'm able to learn more and more about how to lead with my vision, right? So if somebody I bring on understands my core vision and my purpose, they're going to have a much greater buy-in and they're going to know how to act if I'm not there to tell them, okay, like literally click this button. They're like, well, what meets the purpose? Okay, I know how to act. And if by chance they're wrong, that's okay as long as they try their best and we'll work through it. So getting those delegation and leadership pieces in place, there's a huge mindset component to that too of, okay, my vision is worthy of bringing other people in to support it because I'm going to receive from them. And when I receive, I'm able to turn around and spend more time with my daughter, spend more time with Stefan, show her how to lead, show her how to trust and how to have a vision, how to develop it and how to impart it on the world at large and on as many people as possible. I hope that kind of gets at some of your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the main reason I asked is because there's just a lot of people that, they struggle to find time to like, oh, I need to, like, let's say they have a job during the day and they have a family. And like, for most people, it takes up most of the day. But for the people that are really driven and really motivated and they want to make this copywriting thing happen, it's like, how do you find that extra time to make it happen? So like, what advice would you give a beginner who has a job and a family and they really want to get into copywriting, but the balance is really difficult?
You have to be ruthless with whatever is most important to you. You have to be ruthless with that time. So if you have an hour to write at the end of the day, I would also suggest setting specific days, keeping in mind that whatever any schedule you start out with can change. This is not set in stone. But if you decide that, okay, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to solicit clients, or I'm going to apply to gigs. I much prefer applying to gigs than cold solicitation, because you know that person is looking to hire. So it just makes way more sense. Or you could do strategies like where you pay to play. You join like somebody's group or mentorship program, and then you're like, hey, I'm a copywriter, by the way. And you become the copywriter in the group. I really like that approach as well. But whatever your strategy is, and you should try all of them, you designate that Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's it. That's the only thing you're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you got an hour a day to do it, okay, great. One effective hour is, of course, much more productive than 10 hours where you're half dicking around. I'm going to write a little bit. I'm going to watch a training. Oh, somebody posted a gig there. Okay, I'm going to apply to that real quick. Don't apply to gigs real quick. Put thought into how you apply for the gig. Write a cover letter that is fiery and relevant. Write a sample that is relevant and fiery, really good. Make it the best sample you've ever written. And of course, that goes twofold, because then you can pop it into your portfolio and be like, look at this hot fire stuff that I've written. So say you do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Mondays and Wednesdays, you're ruthless. You got your 1 hour. Okay, I'm just going to write. I'm going to write another email for so-and-so, or I'm going to write an offer for my own services. Like every copywriter should do this. Like, what is your dream package? You want to sell a $10,000 health supplement sales letter. Okay, every Monday and Wednesday for the next 3 weeks, the 1 hour I have is devoted towards writing this sales letter. And when you're writing, you are writing. You are not writing 20, 100 words, scrolling back up, rereading it, and editing it yet. That is ineffective. It's driving with your foot on the brake, right? Stop, go, stop, go. Just keep writing. Oh, a huge writing tip that I have been using lately, and I got this from Ben Settle, the amazing Ben Settle, is play one song on repeat while you're writing. And he recommends like Baroque classical music songs that like impacts like theta waves in your brain or something like this. Just that one song. So you got your hour, you're working on your sales page for your offering Mondays and Wednesdays. You're writing to the one song on repeat. You'll have that sales letter done within a month, most likely, maybe less. And then you'll finally have a piece that you could point to, not just to hopefully pick up some clients from, but so that everybody can look and say, oh, their copy is pretty good. It's going to put you on the map, whether you close a bunch of clients with it immediately or not. So if you're doing that Mondays and Wednesdays, and you're applying for gigs and whatnot, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would say on Fridays for your 1 hour, create some content. This was one of the huge secrets to my success as a freelancer. I would put out valuable content because it creates the inbound pipes to me. And remember, you're a copywriter, right? So all of this writing for your content should be really good. It should flow well. You should be opening loops, future pacing, dimensionalization, storytelling, all of the stuff that we know makes good copy good. That should be going into your content too. And whether, and you can embed stuff like, when I do this for my clients, blah, blah, blah. Now everybody learns, oh, Laura writes for clients. Shit, I need a sales letter. I'm going to hit her up. So huge inbound pipes to me. So there you go. No excuses anymore from anybody who is totally busy, like we all are. That's valid. But if you got that 1 hour a day and you're really strategic and ruthless with what you do with the time, you will be productive.
That's amazing advice right there. Literally so many diamonds for anybody who's listening and as a freelancer. Sam Novak makes a good comment too, that like all those pieces of content are long game. Like maybe they don't all pop off, but one does, and that can keep getting you clients over and over and over. It's the same reason why I've gone in on like LinkedIn and YouTube and hired people to help with those, because I believe in them, even though I'm not a beginner anymore. So highly recommend. Now, of all the things that you've mentioned so far, what are your personal secrets of scale? So like, if you had one or two pieces of advice, whether it's, very tactical strategy or mindset, what would you leave someone with if they said, hey, what are your secrets?
So I believe the most important things truly to scale are this and other people. Humans are the only true vehicle of scale, because at the end of the day, you can't, when you get to a certain level, you cannot do it all. Or maybe you can, but it might not be the most effective thing to do, because you require a diverse range of talents and skill sets to check off all the boxes that are required to get to the next level. So the first piece, this one, is the acknowledgement of, I am worthy of owning a business that scales. I am available to receive the fruits of an incredible business that is scaling and growing, so that I can turn around and help more people. Then acknowledging that the way handling setbacks is what makes you successful. It is not the lack of setbacks. There is no such thing as a lack of setbacks. Therefore, every time I encounter a setback, I am looking at it through that lens. Perfect. I have a setback that I have to handle, and this is what's going to make me successful. And then it comes down to the question of, to me, like, am I stoppable or am I unstoppable? And I am unstoppable. A setback cannot stop me. So we're figuring out the setback and we're moving forward and we're doing the next thing. And my preparedness is always really important here, right? So how can I learn every good copywriting trick in the book to make something that doesn't convert? How can I be highly prepared to handle this situation? How much do I need to know about Facebook ads so that if an audience suddenly tanks out of nowhere, I have enough preparedness to know what to do next, and so on and so forth. And then in working with other people, all of the delegation and leader stuff that I've mentioned sort of earlier on, like leading with the vision, getting with an integrator person who can create SOPs, and then let them lead the team to the standard of those SOPs. Because without the team, you can't scale. I don't believe it can really be done in an effective way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. In just a moment, we're going to do some Q&A here. And I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of questions because there was more hype before this interview than probably any of them that I've done so far. Yeah, you're like, yes, I beat Stefan.
I am available to receive that.
So, if you have questions, type those into the chat. In the meantime, I always like to ask, because it's really fun and it usually makes my guests laugh, what is the best and worst business idea that you've ever come up with?
Oh, God. That is funny. It's kind of, it's the same answer that comes to mind for me. Because in a way it was the best, and in a way it was the worst. I had this idea for a shoe search engine where, God, this had to be like mid to like 2010, something like that. So it's like you can input the details about the shoe. Like, I need it to be 3.5 inches in heel height and black and patent leather and a pointy toe. Like, this is my detail, like kind of OCD, like creeping up again, right? I was like, you can input all these things. And then the shoe search engine will spit back like all of these shoes that meet that criteria. And of course, like all the shoes are affiliate links, right? And that's how we monetize the site. And then Stefan and I actually did try to develop it. It was that we spent thousands of dollars in the development of this thing. But like our catalog was never super robust to get results. We didn't know much about how to like really drive traffic to something like this, because it's like the affiliate commissions are so small, like paying for ads, like the economics of that didn't really make sense. I don't know what an organic campaign would really look like. We did get one radio shout out on Z100, which is like one of the most popular radio stations in New York, like talking about, we called it Shuvu, talking about Shuvu. That got us some traffic. I think we made about $300 in affiliate commissions from traffic to that. And then we lost the code in like a brutal like data, breach. So I liked why do I think that was a good idea? maybe just like kind of the fun of it and like shoes, shoes, I'm sold. I like it. But then all of the, not really having like a vision or an end point or any of that in mind, definitely, yeah, screwed us over.
Yeah, a lot of times ideas are just like so, so, so fun. And I have a handful of them, but I just have to be like, no, just
Absolutely.
focus. It's like, you're good at this. Don't do that. But thank you for sharing because it's always fun.
Thank you, Thomas.
So Lana Silva asks, what was the toughest setback you had to overcome in your business, in any of your businesses? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so I had a supplement offer running called Enter Keto, which I still attest is the best name for a keto supplement that I've ever seen. And this was truly like a cash grab play because the keto supplements were on so much fire. And so I launched that offer and it did well. I mean, we were scaling fast all through affiliate traffic. And so this is one of like the mistakes of scale that I made. One was we were eking out a profit. I mean, we were just barely profitable between COGS, affiliate commissions, like overhead costs, like staff, the whole thing, customer support. Our customer support costs were quite high. So just barely eking out a profit. And I knew in my gut that that was making me nervous. I'm like, if something goes wrong, like we just do not have like the appropriate cash reserves to handle any of this. Also, our merchant accounts were keeping quite a lot of money tied up in reserves because it was a little bit of a riskier space. So my mistakes there were letting like the thrill of high revenue numbers convince me to keep running, even when my gut said we should pause and retool. And the fear of the affiliate traffic, you know, the big affiliates getting pissed off at me because I'm pausing the offer and them not coming back. You know what? They would have come back. If I was like, guys, I got to fix this for all of our benefits, okay? So that the rug is not pulled out from under us. And you know I'm good for some hot fire copy as soon as we're back on, they would have come back. So that's what I should have done and not been allured by the big revenue. So we're right there and we're teetering on the edge. And then we face affiliate fraud to the tune of like $50,000 in affiliate fraud that we just did not catch in time in like the chaos of all of these moving pieces. All of a sudden we're getting like refund, like overnight. And we're like, oh shit. By this time, the affiliates are already taking their commission and like ran off to fucking Puerto Rico probably. And so overnight we go from teetering on the edge of profit to 50K in the hole. And that's just like from the networks. And then they're like, and the refunds, and then they're all like, my inventory is on demand. So I got to pay my supplier for that product that went out. My merchant accounts are getting flagged because of all the refunds. So they're like holding more and more money from me. And so like all of the dominoes just fell down. This was by far the biggest setback. Of course, like the monetary loss was incredibly painful. And I even contemplated like, am I going to file for bankruptcy over this, like to get out of this? And then where's my question? Well, am I stoppable or am I not? And I'm not. So it was actually some of the first money I made with Eden Beauty went back to like paying, you know, my supplier, handling the merchant accounts, whatever needed to be done. And I very, you know, the way I handled this was I very transparently, people being the key, right? Like spoke to my suppliers, any affiliate partners who still needed to get paid. And I was like, look, we're screwed right now, but I'm going to make it right. Can I please get on a payment plan with you? Because I had outstanding invoices, like at least like $50,000 invoices to my supplier. And I was like, I cannot pay all that back to you right now unless I declare bankruptcy, which I'm not going to do. So can I put me on a 5K a month payment plan? And, you know, I think a lot of it is being a stand-up person, having done business with them in the past. And they were like, yeah, sure, Laura, we'll do that for you. So every month, like 5K, pay them off. Took a long time. Took like a year to get out of that hole. I was blessed enough to have those good relationships where they let me draw that out over time. And that's in their long-term interest too. They hope I can bounce back and use them again for something else and do it all the right way. So everybody wins, but you gotta own up to when things go wrong. That's and that's a mindset piece also, right?
Yeah, that's a good point too. And it's good to hear that even though like sometimes bad stuff does happen, there are people who are willing to work with you and like just be a good person too because you've been good to them. So that's
absolutely. The
now,
biggest offense there would have been me disappearing. That would have been like the failure. That would have been being stoppable, right? If I disappear, I've been stopped. So just by showing up and not disappearing and being present and being like, look, I'm going to handle this. The road continues, you know?
Exactly. Now, Wendy Presido asked a very similar question, but she says early on in your copy career, what was a major copy fail you had and how did you bounce back?
I can't say that I've had many. I struggled a bit. Raising my prices in the beginning because when I started, I undercut the whole market. That was my play. And so from being the cheapest to quickly becoming one of the best, I was like, I have to raise my rates. But as the story goes, and this is not uncommon, my clients got used to me being very cheap. And, you know, there were times where I was still writing letters for 5K, knowing like, oh my God, like I've drastically undercharged, like drastically. And then I just had to like get the F over it. Like, I don't know what other way to go about it and be willing to take the loss. Okay, if I'm going to take a temporary dip in income while I offboard these clients who are not ready to pay my new rates and connect with and build relationships with clients who are, I'm okay with that. If you need to build up a small nest egg so that you feel comfortable making that shift, that's totally fine. One of the things that I'm able to do, and I did not have this mindset at the time, but one of the things I'm able to do with my coaching clients now is we want no's. We want 3 no's. Okay, this is a goal because freelancers, service providers are like, I got to hear yes. I got to do whatever it takes to get a yes, even if it means sell myself short, undercharge, not define boundaries, scope creep, all of that. I'm like, no more of that. We have a new goal and it's to hear no's. So that just totally reframes like the concept of rejection. Now I'm looking for it. Now I'm going to push the boundaries. Now I'm going to quote 10K, 15K. I need a no. And what a lot of my coaching clients are experiencing is they're still not getting no's. We have to try much harder to get no's. Like we got to say crazier numbers. Like we got to say, well, hey, you got to book me now for my 5K deposit and I'm not able to write it for another 4 months. Maybe that will get us a no. This is what it takes. And if I had known that earlier on, oh God, I would have been charging 25K a letter so much sooner because it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, that's amazing advice because most people, it's just very scary to do that. So hearing it from you, it's like very relaxing for a lot of people, I'm sure. Yeah. So Aldrin asked, you kind of alluded to this, but what are 1 or 2 things you wish you knew when you were just starting out?
1 or 2 things I wish I knew when I was first starting out. The glory of taking more risks, especially risks in relationships with people who I would be intimidated by or shy in front of. And feeling like if I'm ever gonna ascend to this level, or if I'm ever going to forge a relationship with this person, I have to perform. I have to perform as if I'm already super duper successful, and I have to perform as if I know everything in the world about everything. I can't ask a question. And this whole, I was trapped in this belief for a really long time, for years. And I believe it's cost me years. I believe I could be way further ahead if I knew then what I knew now, which is asking questions is awesome. People love answering questions. It makes them feel really, really good and smart. And the things that I feel are quirky or weird or awkward about me actually are the real roots of what connect me to other people, So when I say like, oh yeah, I love this poem, all of a sudden I get these amazing people who are like, I love that poem too. But I would have thought poems have no place in marketing, but they do for some people. And I mean, what is the real risk there? People's like, oh yeah, Laura, she likes poetry. She's a little bit weird. That's not so bad. That's not a bad thing at all. Like that's a totally fine outcome. So taking risks in terms of building relationships with people, being your authentic self, asking for the big numbers and looking for no's. If I had had that concept, like look for a no early on, man, I'm telling you, that would have been huge. And another sort of risk and reframe that I like experienced with somebody I was talking to recently was she had said to me, if I quote 10K and if he, my prospect balks at the price, what if I lose him? And I said to her, well, what if he balks at the price, but you close him anyway? Why? Balking doesn't mean you're going to lose him. Now, again, like if that was me, now I want him to balk at the price. Okay, perfect. How do I do this? And she did not heed that advice and the deal didn't work out for her. In fact, I don't want to give away too much information, but she quoted less than 10K. I was like, maybe he would have said yes if you did 10K. Yeah, maybe that's the number you should have said. Maybe he devalued it. Maybe it didn't empower him enough. You don't know the answers to these questions until you really live in that space and go for it and take that risk. So that's my biggest thing. Take more risks. And if you've determined that you are unstoppable, there's no bad outcome to the risk because you can't be stopped.
Absolutely. And I feel like with pricing too, it's like it's never like, will they say yes or will they say no? There's another side to it. It's like what you're willing to take. So it's like there's the max that they're willing to pay, which can actually be higher than you think. And then there's the minimum that you're willing to do it for. So you might as well shoot for the upper end of that spectrum.
Absolutely. And presenting it in terms of choices too is very effective. So you're like, I have a choice. Okay, here's like this package that you say you want, and I can do that for this price. Here's like the whole bells and whistles package that I think you really need. It'd be so much better for you, X, Y, and Z, and it's this price. What have you done? You sort of taken yes or no out of the equation. Now no is not an option. Now it's just which package. So I really like that approach too.
That reminds me of the AOV money close, but
anyway. Smart people take more, yeah.
Jenny asked, what is your process when writing copy? Do you use Rmbc or do you have your own thing?
So controversial hot tea. I don't really use Rmbc too much. I mean, I do naturally, but I don't follow it like hard to the T. I also don't write a bunch of stuff in the health space. Rmbc works for way beyond health, but it's like absolute fire, like in the health niche. If I was to write a letter in the health space, which I actually am doing pretty soon for a new venture, on part 2 of You and Me, I'll talk about that one. Open a loop. It's very exciting. Then I would like really stick tight to Rmbc. I mean, let me get clear on my answer to this. So I do, but not in a super formal way, because I'll do the research and I'll really think hard about the mechanism and then I'll write. But I feel like for me, like I expand the C quite a bit because I have this whole approach to the actual act of writing, like the generative phase. Okay, how are all these ideas like coming to me and how am I playing with them? How am I embodying the customer? How am I embodying all of the great copywriters who've come before me? Which this is my one hack, guys, listen up, to really become a better copywriter. Embody a great copywriter. So John Carlton says, I want my headline to grab them by the throat. That just like sets my body on fire a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, like I want my headline to grab them by the throat. And now I'm writing like Carlton. So I feel like that's such a like little shortcut that any writer could take. And then I embody Stefan too. Like, man, how do I get this like mechanism so unique and so tight and so dialed in? Okay, I'm going to approach this like Stefan and embody him. So then I get that piece. But all of that for me falls under the C. And I do have a calling in my heart to offer up my training on this stuff. I have an acronym for it and everything, GAME, the game frame. So generate, articulate, manipulate, as in like edit, okay, and not manipulate people necessarily, also not necessarily. And then E for like exit, how to end a piece, because I find a lot of writers struggle with this too, like when is it done? So giving a framework for, okay, this is serviceable, we can run it and go from there and be prepared our preparedness theme with, you know, the ideal split tests going forward, what we're going to do back to the front, like all of this. So I incorporate some RMBC and some game frame into my stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I think that's just about all the questions that our audience had. A lot of people are saying legit the best advice on writing fire copy I've ever heard. I have the final question.
Yes, sir.
Where can people go to connect with you and just like learn a lot more in addition to what they've heard today?
Absolutely. So everyone is totally invited to sign up for my email list. That is at diamonddaymastermind.com. Really good stuff going out to the list. I have a subject line that I just wrote called the 3-week jerk off. So if anybody is interested in, is this an R-rated podcast, Troy? Do you hate me right now?
I mean, we had Jason Bojo last week, so, you know, it's
yeah, so I got a lot of fiery emails in the works to go out to that, in addition to a bunch of content you'll also get. So yeah, that's diamonddaymastermind.com. Please do connect with me on Facebook. That's where I'm most active, at Laura Catella Georgi. If anybody who has been on this call has any other questions for me, I would be thrilled to answer them. I absolutely love helping people, especially with all of this stuff. I get like geeked out talking about it. Troy and I had a wonderful conversation at Flight Club Mastermind about what makes him like such an absolute badass. I would love for him to like talk more about that one day, maybe in a training or in a post or whatever. So a little seed planted there. Yeah. And so I would love to do the same with any of you guys who have gone the distance with us today.